Welcome back to Taiwan versus the world. Another episode with a focus on soft power to carry us through the holiday season. We will talk with two experts on sports diplomacy to see how Taiwan can use its athletes to foster its international image. And we will take more lessons from South Korea and how its own pop culture, the Hallyu phenomenon, contributes to society. Without further delay, let's move on to today's interview and the world of sports diplomacy. Today we're going to carry on exploration on soft power and how it can serve Taiwan well, and with one specific side of soft power, which is sports diplomacy. With me today are two people who have been recently speaking at a conference on the topic. With me we have today Yi-chieh, right?
Yes, I'm currently working for Institute for Security and Development Policy. It's a think tank based in Stockholm. For me, I work on different issues related to Taiwan, and personally, because of my passion for sports, and also the current government is focusing on developing more sports diplomacy. So this is also one of the issue I'm working on, and that's also why we're talking this today with you, Julian.
Thank you. And with us also is Dr. Lin Chien-chi. I believe you are a member of the parliament in Taiwan.
Hi, good afternoon, Julian and Yi-chieh. I work in the Legislative Yuan in Taiwan, and which is a member of the parliament. My focus is in education and culture. But sports is one of my hobby. It used to be a hobby. Then I touch upon several different genres, and eventually I'm now more focused on aquatic sports. And also on land, so-called ball sports are what I play most of the time during my sports session.
So of course
Would
here
that be
I'm going
enough?
to have to defer to both of you because you seem to be both very sports-minded person. I mean, I used to do martial arts a couple of centuries ago or something. So of course you are
Martial
much
arts.
more, yeah, you are much more advanced than me when it comes to sports in general. Uh, but yeah, let's introduce the concept to the audience. What in general does it mean when we talk about sports diplomacy?
This is a good question. When we talk about the sports diplomacy, especially one of the essential way of Taiwan's international outreach, the diplomacy uses sports as a platform for international engagement. It connects athletes, coaches, associations, and community across borders, allowing countries to build trust, share values, and cooperate in ways that go beyond formal politics and the political parties. For Taiwan, it is a practical form of people-centered diplomacy that strengthens the international presence through shared human experiences. So sports diplomacy is a way to get through all those barriers.
Okay, thank you. This is something that actually that I need to disclose to viewers. So you said you're a member of the parliament, I believe, for the Kuomintang party. Yi-chieh just told us this is also a government policy, but you are in the opposition. So am I to understand that this is actually a bipartisan effort?
Yes, it is a few of the issues that we both agree with nowadays.
All right, excellent. Yi-chieh, if you want to tell us your definition or your view of what sports diplomacy means.
For me, it's quite close to what the legislator just mentioned. I fully agree with what she just said. And for me, I think it's a informal diplomacy that can complement the formal diplomacy that Taiwan has nowadays. And it opens up more opportunities for Taiwan or other countries to engage with each other due to Taiwan's unique diplomatic limitation. And it is also an occasion avenue that Taiwan can build trust with other country outside of politics, because I know from a Taiwanese point of view, or people who works a lot of issues in Asia, they are familiar with Taiwan situation. But when you go into a European general society, you say, yeah, I'm from Taiwan. Yeah, they know where is Taiwan, but that's it. They don't really know what does it really stands for and what's the differences between China and Taiwan, or what's the differences between Thailand and Taiwan. So that's the issue I encounter when I live in Sweden. Like people say, okay, I heard about Taiwan, and that's the only thing they know, and they don't really know more about Taiwan. And I think through sports, we can build a bridge between general society, and I think that's an important way for Taiwan to actually promote itself effectively outside of political circle.
Many years ago, when I was in Bulgaria, and
Mm,
there was a friend, a musician, talked to me about Taiwan, and he told me, "Wow, I know Taiwan a lot, and I've done a lot of things about Taiwan." Sounds like that. But when I look at his compositions, then I found out it's maybe Tibet. It's just like Yi-chieh's, that
mm,
when we talk about the people's perception about Taiwan, sometimes it confused with Tibet, Thailand, and all those tea started things.
yeah.
Yeah, so which remind me what I have encountered in other country a long time
Mm.
ago. All right, and so when we talk about these topics, or maybe each one want to add something before I go on.
No, you can go on. Yeah.
How do I get interest in this topic is because through my work, the sports policy and international cooperation, and especially observing how countries like Sweden can use sport to promote equality, community participation, and social trust. And I also see that for Taiwan, sports democracy is a meaningful way to engage the world despite geographic constraints.
What about you, Yi-chieh? How did you come to be interested in this topic?
For me, I think one part of the reason is personally, I like sports a lot. I train in track and field for decade, 1 decade. I'm not that old, so not that long. In Taiwan, and then I went to Sweden, and now I play in a rugby club. And then I noticed the differences between training the sports in Taiwan and training the sports in Sweden. Then because when I'm in the rugby team, I realize it's actually a good way to know this society, to know the people in the general society instead of the image you see this country in the international media. It's very different. And then also because of my work now, a lot of them is related to how to promote Taiwan's visibility internationally. Then so I come up with the idea maybe I should share my experience or try to contribute my ability to use sports as a way to promote Taiwan's visibility or maybe not just promote Taiwan's visibility, but to help people to understand what Taiwan stands for or what is Taiwan. Because I feel like the general knowledge of Taiwan is very, very limited in most of the countries.
Yes, this is very true, and this is a fight that we fight every day to try to make this country better understood around the world. So you just mentioned that sport gives a different image of Taiwan. Can you tell me, both of you, how is it different when Taiwan is perceived through sports?
I think, of course, from the diplomatic and political point of view, people would probably think about Chinese Taipei, this issue. And a lot of people don't really know Chinese Taipei actually is Taiwan in the international sporting events. And I think that's one way to see it. And another way is if some people they are interested in badminton or some specific sports that Taiwan is very good at, then they might heard about Taiwan. But I think if we're talking about sports in general society, that's something that Taiwan is not very exposed to. Because I think even nowadays, the government and the whole society is still trying to develop it, which Europe is done better job than us. And I think that's the way for Taiwan to show more about itself and its own sports culture. Because I think structural wise, Taiwan is very different from, for example, European club-based culture. So I think Taiwan, how other people perceive Taiwan in a sports way, it's not very a popular way to see Taiwan because we are not really a big sports nation. We are never really famous for sports. Of course, some of the athletes is very good in specific sports, but we are not like maybe US or China or Australia being perceived as a huge sports nation. or maybe even Nordic country, they are very big in winter sports. But Taiwan, it's not really like that. So for now, I think how people see Taiwan through sport is through some specific sporting events, maybe specific athletic figures.
I want to echo to what Yi-chieh just said. The reason we are not quite exposed to international to the world in sports is because the background when we grow up. I think sports, also called ethnic culture, is not popular when we grow up, and we used to, like, our parents or the whole society want us to focus on so-called studying, or maybe like, the high tech is quite famous in Taiwan, and all those things that maybe indoors associate the studying and the so-called the soft power that we are visible now. But sport wasn't encouraged when we grow up. When I was a child and I played the handball, and I was called back by the teacher or my parents back to the classroom and being told you will have a better development to studying rather than out on the field. Even my parents are quite good in field and track. So they have something to do with the background. But along with the development of the society and what we started to develop in high tech and sport become more visible in the society. And I think most of the reason is due to the success in the Olympic Games. So we started to gain the first Olympic medals in 2004. Then we started to know, it's possible that we can do some good in this field. And of course, there were some good training program in certain field. So along these years, there are some single sport started to develop, such as baseball, badminton, taekwondo, archery, and even swimming. So all these associations and the sport genres played key roles in technical standards and athletic pathways and international networks. But in aquatic sports or winter sports, we are still constrained to what we had now in the society. And that's what we really wants to look into, to cooperate with Sweden, especially this aquatic sports, which I am participating. Yeah, so some echoing and also to share the Asia status about the sport activities in Taiwan. It's more still like the elite level than the public level. And the public or to grassroots is what we really need to work on, and we are on the path to now.
This is a fascinating conversation, and there are now so many things I want to ask both of you, especially about the challenges that Taiwan are meeting, and you are already mentioning it. Just something comes to mind right now. I think I listened to the conference that you did the other day on the topic, and I think it was mentioned that Taiwanese people are culturally adverse to go in the water.
I've heard a theory that aside from Austronesian people, which is the so-called Aboriginal people in Taiwan, most of the people who came later were the so-called continent culture. So it is quite hard for people's concept, or maybe it's in the hidden memory that people don't like to close to the sea. But for Austronesian, like when I'm one of the member of the Aboriginal people, and my group, my community, is a sea-oriented culture. So for us, it's not a problem. But for a lot of people in Taiwan, there were historical backgrounds such as the ban during certain period that people shouldn't be were not allowed to be on the sea or close to the sea, and some of the reason is because people were immigrate from mainland China. So for the continent culture, people are not used to be close to the sea. Maybe there are some historical issues and also the political issues. So there are certain background which made us not so close to the sea, so not so developed in the aquatic sport culture. But for those who are seeking or in this aquatic culture who are quite excellent that I had encountered. So it's something that we may develop well if we plan it well and really have some certain sufficient facilities for us now, or maybe we are still keeping the same constraint which we were.
And this is, yes, still the topic of the difficulties that Taiwan have to overcome to go deeper into sports diplomacy. And you mentioned, you say you are an educator too. And it's true that it circles back to education, the fact that sport is not necessarily valued at school. And yet, all these nations that are successful in sports worldwide, it has been fostered by authorities at a certain level. There's always something
Yes.
organizing it. I would like to ask you both, maybe Yi-chieh, you can start telling us what do you think should be changed in Taiwan to help the development of sports diplomacy?
I think, as we mentioned before, the grassroots and the public part is very important because even in my generation, I don't know how about right now, but even for my generation, the PE class in the school is always the exam time. So you have to finish the exam, then maybe you can have a PE class. So I think that's one of the incident that shows that Taiwan is not value sports as much as many other European countries because for them it's a subject you can abandon if you don't have other achievement in maybe subject related to technologies or maybe diplomatic things. So I think that's something Taiwan should try to change faster because I think without understanding of the general society, without a general society understanding of what sports is good for people or society, or what sport can bring to everyone, then it's hard to use sports to further promote Taiwan in different ways. Because if the society doesn't understand, how could you use this further? So I think it will be one of the challenge for Taiwan to when they try to promote sports diplomacy, especially now Taiwan is still very focused on elite sports. So if the general society doesn't understand the importance of the grassroots sports participation in general society, then the government be might can only use the elite sports to further promote Taiwan. Then Taiwan will stuck there forever, like to use elite sports instead including the general society. But without including the general society into its sport diplomacy, then Taiwan cannot break through other civil society. So I think that's one of the challenges that Taiwan has to face now.
What do you mean by elite sport exactly?
Sort of like the professional athletes, they compete in the international competitions. And for example, the athletes who participating in the Asian Games or someone who can make it to Olympics game, these kind of elite sports, and also the elite athletes who will participate in the training that hosted by the state, and they get some of the resources and they compete in other countries in the professional level. For me, that's the elite sports.
All right, thank you for precising. Dr. Lin, do you want to also contribute?
Maybe we can say it this way. It's more the so-called elite sports. It's more like a so-called professional level. Just like Yi-chieh said, those who participated in Olympic Games or Asian Games with some valued doubt games are what we still call elite sports. Actually, it's like in a professional level. So who got the training program professionally, and also it's more like medal oriented. So that's very few people can be on that level to get resources about the sports training. But what we really look into is the public-oriented sport participation. So that's I think Yi-chieh mentioned in Sweden the sports club is quite popular, but in Taiwan it's not so popular that it is hard for because of the historical background that we are not used to have sport in our daily life, or when we are in school that we have been somehow banned or imbalanced developed between so-called sports and another kind of studying. And I think we all went through. So and also in some country, like the big countries, big sport country like USA or Europe, the sports are more supported by the public and also the industry. But in Taiwan, the government played a main role in the sports training program. And so it's not, well, it's not, oh, the constraint for us to develop is still that we are not quite public oriented. So that's how we talk about the elite or grassroots development. So the grassroots and community-based sports are not so popular nowadays still. And we are still facing urban, rural, and the indigenous community disparities in facilities, coaching, and resources. So, but we really admired Sweden's long-lasting emphasis on community accessibilities and associational participation provides an important reference for building a more inclusive sports culture in Taiwan. And I think that's what we mean. So for those who can get better resources are not public oriented. It's all constrained in those sports stars or those who can win the games. And so the resources are not down to everybody in the society. And I think that's how we so-called the sport within the elite level or professional level. So for me, I'm more concerned the public sports participations, and it is still a long way for us to go.
I see. And yet we named that there are a lot of benefits to sports diplomacy. We talked also about the Olympic Games, about how there have been actually debates during the Olympic Games with the last Olympic Games with the display of Taiwanese flags or the name Chinese Taipei, which, if I'm correct, not every sports institution actually uses Chinese Taipei. Some of them uses different names. But would you tell me about some success stories, actually, some moments when Taiwan actually achieved something significant through the sports diplomacy?
I would say maybe 2017, the World University Games. That could be one of the example that Taiwan successfully connects people from different countries through sports because they host many athletes from many countries. I think that's one of the example in recent years. But I think sport diplomacy for Taiwan is still a very new space to explore. So if you ask me whether there's a very outstanding and successful example, I don't think there's one in my personal point of view.
Maybe something I learned of can give some ways to break through. I remember there were some district games, such as tug of war, we had with this so-called Basque country. Do you know where Basque country is? Yes, on the
That straddles
northeast.
the
It's
border of France
northeast.
and Spain, I think, eh?
Yes. And I remember in those games, the tug of war, and we used Taiwan and they used Basque. So aside from this Olympic or Asian or certain so-called world game, there were some games that we can have some spatial identities about who we are, and also for those who had a similar status like of our political status, that we can recognize each other by using this name that give us some some space to run off. So that might be something this sports diplomacies can work as an example. But there are some games that we hold may have this kind of space. And I'm not sure if this World Master game we just had passed through, can give the same recognition about how you what you talk about. I'm not sure if that's the example, but there are certain ways we can still have some space to make the word recognized. Also, we are still restricted to certain political issues that we are not quite clear for the world to recognize us who we are. But I think there are still some games to work on and to make this work for people to recognize what Taiwan is about.
This is interesting, and indeed, of course, we don't expect sports diplomacy to single-handedly save Taiwan. But then, what would be the best thing that you hope to achieve? What would be the ideal scenario in sports diplomacy, the goal, something that you think is achievable and that you would love to see happen?
For me, because I train track and field in Taiwan and I play rugby in the Swedish club. So for me, I would say I would like to see the club and maybe some school team in Taiwan, they can actually exchange together, because I think that's a way to both sides to really understand their civil society, what people do in sports, what's their daily life looks like, because most of them they are not professional athletes, or maybe they are semi-professional, but they usually have a full-time job on the side. And I think there's a way for both sides to really understand what Sweden, for example, or Taiwan represent and what kind of values they have in their society. And I think meeting each other outside of professional arena, a sports arena, it opens up more opportunity to really get to know each other instead of just competing the game, because you have more time to know the people and their culture and how they live their life, basically. So for me, I would like to see the lower level of sports to actually meet each other, because government have more funding or maybe more resources for them, so it's probably easier for them to really connect to each other in the professional level. But for civil society, that's the more challenging way. And because Sweden is very good at promoting its public participation in sports, and I think that's also something Taiwan can learn from during the if we actually have a sports exchange someday. Because when you really meet with them, then you know how they make it happen, how they make it work in the Swedish society. And I think the first-hand experience would be very beneficial for the people in Taiwan.
And what I look into is the aquatic and water-based sports. And I think that's quite practical for Sweden and Taiwan to connect. And in Sweden, we know the water activities are embedded in daily life through strong water safety culture and public access and club systems. This is what we lack of. And in Taiwan, because of the historical military restrictions on coastlines and limited early water safety education, slowed aquatic sports development. And now, today, the interest in surfing and open water swimming, paddling, diving, and sailing grows rapidly. And this is what Sweden is good at. And I think to connect in all these fields should be more positive in the society connections. And also, there are like 16 Aboriginal peoples in Taiwan. And for the word indigenous or Aboriginal people or Austronesian people to get together and have this traditional athletic game genre to play with or compete with, and should be another perspective or another development in so-called sport culture. And that should be something unique for Taiwan. And we really look into to have this chance to work with or play with maybe Sami people or those special like island people in Sweden. And that's something in my mind, and maybe something we can outreach to not only Sweden and also sea cultures and also those places with original peoples or special peoples in so-called country. And that's another way of connecting people together, praying together with less political issues. And this should be something we can work on.
So it's a very, very interesting conversation about a mixture, yes, of big competitions and just simply athletes from different countries meeting. Would you both tell me what were your best memories of working on sports diplomacy?
I'm not sure it's getting to this so-called sports level, but I started sailing in my country. Then I started to compete and participate in all those different sorts of regattas. But when I learned steelboat sailing, I actually learned it in Europe. So in this knowledge exchanges and learning process outside of my country, and that's really something that I think I have achieved sports diplomacy by participating myself. And that's quite fascinating and have a deep, profound memories in my sport learning process, like the sailing, and I got the RYA license in Europe, especially in Spain. But it is the English system. So people from all over the world to go to Europe to get this license and learn these aquatic knowledges in exchanging how we see through the aquatic cultures or sailing cultures. And it is quite fascinating that we come from different background and exchanges what we had perceived. And it is really a diplomacy process that I think is quite successful.
For me, is to getting to know people who has the same passion with me, because when we work with people who usually focus on diplomacy or political issues, sometimes you get frustrated about, we can't change Taiwan's diplomatic constraint in one day, and we always have to try to see from different point of view to make yourself feel better. So I think for me, that's sports diplomacy is one way for me to see the more positive side of Taiwan's diplomatic situation, and to get to know people who believe that sports could be another options to help Taiwan, and not just to help Taiwan, but also to have a beneficial way to connect with other country that both sides can learn from each other. I think that's something very nice and good to know for me. For me, another side is when my personal experience training in two different countries. And I think it's a lot of learning experience, because the training culture in Taiwan is quite different from the one I have experienced in Sweden. And to compare the differences and to see the pros and cons in different systems. And I think that's very important for me to find a way to think how to connect both sides together. So I think for me that's good experience and good memory. But I'm still new to this field, so I'm looking forward to know what I will encounter in the future.
Well, let's hope you will have even
Yeah,
better
for me, to
memories.
close up, to more promoting sports for all and to build a resilient grassroots foundation is what I'm aiming for. And advancing valued-based democracy, using sports to support democracy, gender equality, indigenous visibility, and youth empowerment will be my goal to achieve on.
Dr. Lin and Yi-chieh, thank
Yes.
you so much for discussing this topic with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrying on our exploration of soft power and how it can help Taiwan, the best example in East Asia is South Korea. Its mighty Hallyu cultural movement has greatly transformed the country and its standing, but it also has its limits. In any case, learning from South Korea is important for Taiwan. In September, I had the opportunity to attend a conference organized by the World Association of Hallyu Studies, and I discussed with two academics who took part in it, Hyeseon Hwang and Fabio Rocca.
Temporarily, I work for the University of Seoul as manager for the program, executive program. I want to show the power of media convergence, lead the narratives of people, and it gives very strong influence on the mind and attitude to the people.
I'm Fabio Rocca. I'm a sociologist at the University Paul Valéry, Montpellier, where I'm a director of the Department of Sociology, and I take research about the imaginary, social imaginary. The social imaginary is how there is this force of images, the power of the myth, the fascination of the fantasy, all the stuff that can build a new atmosphere in the human being. The imaginary is something more real than real.
Fabio explains what the conference is about, and Hyeseon shares how her knowledge expanded.
In the conference, we talk about the power of Hallyu studies, the pop culture from Korea and from Japan. And there is also something interesting because it's how this pop culture has a big condition in the real world, and how the pop culture feels like in a new effervescence world. How there is a conditioning of the human relation through the movies, through the manga, through all the things that are in relation with this powerful culture. The conference was specifically on fertility and new consideration of gender, new consideration also of feminism, and this human relation today, what happened today. And so the pop culture can be an answer, because through the manga, through the movies, the K-drama, through the K-pop music too, we can talk about a lot of things interesting about this question, social question of fertility and condition of men and women.
Yesterday, I learned the new terms, onto power, and it works as onto power to people without politics. So finally, I could understand why politics, government, always to take control, take the power of broadcasting or mass media. Journalism, why journalism is so important. Yesterday, I understood.
The South Korean example shows how pop culture not only influenced the country's international standing, but also helped address societal issues such as fertility. And this is a problem that Taiwan also faces, making Hallyu an interesting example.
The argument was about the influence of the pop culture to rethink social questions. For example, the fertility or the masculinity or the femininity is another version of the reality, about the political reality. There is another version in the pop culture that is more real, more intense, more intensive about the young people. The people consider the pop culture most important that the family, that the political, and that the economic condition. So we can see better, I think, is my opinion. We can see better this human condition of fertility, masculinity, feminism in the product of culture, of pop culture than in the discourse of political, for example. This is not a simple question because we must investigate more. And I think that maybe can be a new imaginary from a pop culture that can involve people to the new kind of life the new kind of fertility, because the project of the government doesn't work. The project of government doesn't talk to the people. The pop culture talk to the people, and so maybe the pop culture can approach people to this question and maybe change the condition of human being.
My research is the theme, even though it's pure love and deferred intimacy, to through not by Confucianism, but by the media convergence. Many people they change their mind about the love and making a relationship between men and women, and also they change the formation of a family tie. We never think about other type of family formation. Future husband, future wife. We never think about the kind of family type. Yeah, but nowadays we BL love, BL fiction, and also just the cohabitation. The kind that we accept it. It could be a family with culture, idol, or like that.
Both observed that the economy is not the only explanation for Korea's fertility issues and that pop culture can play a role in change. This is something we barely hear in conversations about soft power and influence.
When they watch the program, that kind of documentary program to take care of the child and supporting the husband, the real life of a married couple, and they thought, wow, it is too hard. I have to take care of many things. I think the media could change the narratives among young generation.
There's a big problem in Asia, also in Europe, but Europe is a kind of big different, and we can see in South Korea, also in China, that the fertility became a social problem, became a big issue of the political, because maybe it's the world that is became more dangerous, and the people, the young people, the new generation, has another vision of the world that the political doesn't understand. And so if they make constriction, young people don't answer to this constriction. I think that the dialogue is broken between the political and young generation. And so the fertility is became like a business too. In my opinion, became a business in this part of Korea, China, and Asia.
Even though Korean government invest lots of money, over $100 to have a child, young generation, they know the reality, and they think they couldn't have any faith in their brighter future. Just today, if I get married and have a child, I will be a kind of debtor.
The two academics see solutions emerging in the realm of pop culture and its integration into daily life that goes beyond merely projecting soft power. It can become part of national identity, and this is a valuable lesson for Taiwan.
Incentive is short-term policy. We need a long-term perspective, because young generation, when they make a decision to get married, means they expect more happier and brighter future. Many programs, many dramas shows different direction, opposite direction. Before 20s, the K-dramas always show the value of family. Living together sometimes give us burden, sometimes give the children good memory to support their whole life.
Because there is a lot of condition. Now, so economic is one of these. I can make a confrontation with Europe, because for example in Europe, many young people, young generation, think that they don't have a good, they don't have economical possibilities to bring a family. So in Korea, maybe it's a little bit different, but economic is always a problem for all the world. But I think that it's not simply economic, because we can reduce the world to the simple question of economic. I think there's more deeply, it's more social. So we must investigate in the intimacy of the people, in the social intimacy. We invest in intimacy with the story of life, for example. It will be interesting to make a big research about the younger generation and to investigate about the story. The history is a method, for example, to make narration of their history and what they do in their life. So from this we can maybe understand some issue of this problem in South Korea. The change is always difficult. Yeah, we say we want to change, but nothing change. So I think that the change can be interesting when people bring the sufficient consideration of the power of pop culture, because we are always on the influence of culture. So the pop culture can talk to young generation, and the pop culture can identify a new feeling of people. So I think that can be an instrument to. I don't think the world change is the better, but I think that pop culture can do something to sensibilize. I think that it's more better to talk to sensibilize than to change. They use the word change.
Government just want to change their policy, but it is a short term and very just immediate to not work very well. Try to change their attitude, atmosphere, or climate. We need that, and then they could make a decision to have a child, even though they have to support for a long time financially, and they have to support fully for them. But it is necessary for change the climate of society nowadays in Korea.
In other news about Taiwan this week, the Legislative Yuan has approved a motion to initiate impeachment proceedings against President Yi-chieh. The case now goes to the Control Yuan for investigation. In response to the recent $11.1 billion arms sale to Taiwan, China has announced sanctions on 20 US defense companies and 10 individuals. And on the economic front, Taiwan's industrial production rose for the 21st consecutive month in November, driven by strong demand for AI-related servers, chips, and optoelectronic equipment. We will meet next week for another episode of Taiwan versus the World. Until then, wishing you a Happy New Year!